Welcome to Only the Bare Facts, a bold voice of truth, integrity, and transparency in a chaotic world. This channel is your destination for unfiltered stories, real-life lessons, and an unwavering commitment to the word of truth. Bare is an eclectic personality of raw grit and gentle kindness. What you see is what you get. Bare's eclectic interests have brought great adventures and exciting learning curves to his life, and here, he shares those experiences through seeking the truth in this world of deception and manipulation. Finding redemption in the light of God's truth, Bare's journey is a testament to resilience through suffering, experiencing death, redemption, and faith. Now a warrior for truth, Bare shares his mission to expose darkness, foster genuine connections, and inspire others to live their true identity through divinity, with authenticity, authority, and courage as sons and daughters of God.
Well, welcome to Only the Bare Facts Session 8, titled, Is Canada Dead? Here's what the landscape looks right now. Abandoned by a tax corrupt narcissistic psychopath, embezzler, who now run by an unelected crime minister, sworn in by an unelected monarchy-appointed Governor General of Canada. Yep, that's Canada. Simon, yep, that's right, folks. Accordion playing, berry-picking ex-CBC commentator who does what she's told. With an unelected Senate and judiciary infiltrated by the Chinese government. A council of some of the old goofs and a few new goofs to deflect his corruption, with an unelected RCMP commissioner, a controlled media propaganda machine, and a controlled and manipulated opposition, pretending to care about people who did not vote for any of these people or positions. Yeah, that's democracy. Reminds me a little bit of the Ukraine. Not as many dead yet, but kind of give it some time, right? And what is first on Carnival Carney's agenda? A flight to Europe. Why, you ask? Well, because he has to go see Soros and his WEF handlers. In the middle of a trade negotiation that isn't going well for Canada, he sends his minimally skilled puppet delegates to play in the big league of negotiations against a far superior opponent with an endless supply of brains, brawn, balls, power, and backing from the nation. Well, it's done. The Carney Carnival has begun. Sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada, selected by the Liberal members, I believe that was about 3% of the population of Canada, but never voted in by the people of Canada, into a completely dysfunctional pro-rogue government. Let me tell you a bit about this idiot. Let me get you a picture of him, too. This guy, Carney, the unelected WEF puppet. This guy and his cabinet are a turbocharged Death Star version of the Trudeau regime. Things are going to be extremely bad and significantly worse than the last 8 years. Just sit back and watch. Carney is a friend and supporter of the Greta Thunberg. Remember her? That was that crazy environmentalist girl that the whole world thought was really important and knew her stuff. Well, he's also a friend of Bill Gates Foundation and the New World Order environment advocate, friend of the island partiers and possibly participant in Epstein's little sex parties. Who knows? We already know that Carney spent a considerable amount of time on the sex island. Photos that do exist that show that. I don't know. WEF Soros puppet Carney invested millions in foreign oil, foreign coal, foreign pipelines, but will not support Alberta oil going across the country to world markets. He doesn't think we need any more steel. His latest smoke and mirrors trick is to tell a propaganda machine he's taking away the carbon tax so he can buy votes from stupid Liberal supporters, when in actual fact, he's just hiding it. He didn't take it away. It's legislation, so it's going to have to go back into the legislation, go back into the government, get approved, a new version approved. We all know that he's going to tack it on. And for those of you out there who don't think he's going to, come on, get your head out of your ass. And just human to human, I can't stand this guy's arrogance. I've always had a problem with people who think they are superior one way or another and their shit doesn't stink. They have more money or whatever it is that makes them think they're more important. But the other thing is his monotone speaking style. Seriously, this guy actually irritates me more than Trudeau does every time he opens his mouth. Are Canadians completely brainwashed again by the woke narrative like they were during the pandemic? Do stupid people actually fall that easily into the mob mentality of booing the American national anthem at a sporting event? I mean, stop Trudeau from pillaging what's left of the country. There's no way that's going to happen. And on his way out, he promises another $5 billion to Ukraine, totaling 19, And at the last hour of his insanity, he targets law-abiding gun-carrying citizens of Canada, this time forcing more controls, banning more guns, lying to people that this will make the country safer, and his continued condescending tone says how proud he is of Canadians. I don't know if you heard that, but oh man, who cares what this guy's got to say? And who does this monkey think he is? And that's right. I mean, stupid people who voted for him because he had nice hair and would legalize pot are the fools who gave him some legitimacy that he's done nothing more than make millions of dollars in corrupt stealing and extorting our taxes, making sure his babysitter slush pedophile buddy Stephen Gilbert, or however you say his name, and other friends get really, really rich. By the way, that guy's been seriously demoted. About time, stupid idiot environmental crazy guy, because Carney doesn't want him there. Carney and the liberal misfits will be propped up by the Jagmeet, the most parasitic corrupt socialist in Canada that Canada's ever seen, with his uneducated, illogical suggestions on how to solve problems. You know, a judge decided that Trudeau was within his legal right to prorogue Parliament. Did anyone really think that that judge was going to say anything else? I mean, he's corrupt as hell. And who pays his salary? Well, we all know who does that. Mark Carney, Dominic LeBlanc, Kristen Hillman, and Doug Ford remind me of the story of the three little pigs, except we've added in one pig. The four pigs are delusional, are completely out of touch with reality. These four tax money disposal units really are useless. These four little pigs spew word salad rhetoric at the country while suckling each other and oinking their collective fear of the big bad wolf who might blow their house down. We know who that's supposed to be. When in actual fact, they're living in rental property paid for by you and me Canadians, have destroyed the little house that they turned into a pig pen. They're simply posturing and using accusations as a defense mechanism and redirect our attention at fearing the United States, our most lucrative and available market. None of these little piglets say anything about how screwed up the country is and how destructive the liberal Carney Trudeau circus has been. They don't talk about pipelines. They don't talk about the West being abused for all these years. They don't talk about the government overreach, our lost freedom of speech, any illegal COVID mandates. They don't accept any responsibility for the last 8 years at all. I mean, that's one old guy's opinion. That's me. Trump isn't trolling. He's actually seriously saying the best option is to become the 51st state. I know. Some of you have your heads up your ass and actually think that he's a meanie pants. Remember, he's working for Americans. He's not working for Canadians. And he isn't going to continue to allow Canada to freeload and tax American goods. So yes, it would be better for us if we were the 51st state. I want you to watch this.
Canada, the finance minister are in town and will meet members of your administration during the day. Any chances that you will ban on the tariffs on aluminum and the ones that are planned for April 2nd?
No.
You are not going to change your mind?
No, look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars, we're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. How good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, you know, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful, but it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it.
There he is, once again, saying exactly the same thing. I got one more spool for you.
Spend $200 billion a year subsidizing Canada. We don't have to do that. And frankly, the way that get solved is Canada should honestly become our 51st state.
He says it all over the place. He's been continuing to say it. I mean, there's a viable option there. I know there's all kinds of complications, but whatever. Anyway, it may appear that Danielle Smith is helping Alberta, but is she? It appears to me she has had minimal impact because she's not a separatist. And as much as I'd like to think that she could be a separatist, I know she's not. But will she ever let go of the United Canada concept? I believe in redemption. Danielle Smith crossed the floor once before, but it seems she's done it again. By adopting this Team Canada rhetoric. Prove me wrong, Danielle. Stand up and tell the feds no more. She's not listening to the people of Alberta. She needs to stop pandering to the liberal socialist idiots who didn't even vote for her. And she should actually listen to the voters of the province. She has a very dangerous adversary. Mark Carney. Once again, this guy. Mark Carney, who really wants to decimate what is left of this country. And one more thing about Danielle. So remember that stupid mayor of Calgary, the socialist whack job, who is now heading the NDP? Said it is despicable for Danielle to attend a speaking appearance with Ben Shapiro, because these are not the kind of people Albertans want her associated with. Really? Nenshi? Who's a Nenshi? What's a Nenshi? Oh yeah, a left-wing extremist nutjob who supports removing freedom of speech, freedom of association, and freedom of a religion, with a mental health disorder, who propagates and promotes, I don't know, juvenile genital manipulation or mutilation, and spreads misinformation about climate change hoax. He condemns those who refuse to accept government tyranny and oppression through forced vaccinations, and is a socialist with a distorted ideology that are contrary to proven principles of science. His opinion has no value or meaning here as far as I'm concerned. He should probably step away from the microphone and close his mouth. We already have enough fecal matter coming out of Ottawa. We don't need any more. Anyway, this is nothing more than the perspective of a guy who has been overtaxed like all Canadians, but refuses to comply to the insanity of this narcissistic government that seems to be bent destroying whatever's left of the Canadian spirit. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Carney is the worst nightmare this country could ever have. Remember, he has every bad idea that the puppet Trudeau ever had. Canada is nothing more than a piece of property in the proverbial board of a monopoly game, being played by the most corrupt, narcissistic bullies who have absolutely no awareness or regard for what their narcissistic actions have on all the people who perceive themselves trapped on this monopoly board. They need to wake up and realize some of us who feel trapped on the board can see clearly through the facade of their insanity, and we simply will not comply to their self-perceived authority. Some people are at a breaking point. This desperation deeply saddens me. Speaking of real news, I want to suggest you go watch my friends down at Rebel News Daily Roundup. Sheila Gunn Reid and her co-hosts and the entire Rebel News team are on top of all these things, what's going on, and provide valuable insight and information for every discerning, awakened person. They did a great live podcast you can go watch on YouTube and Rumble, and they have a good review of things. Check them out. Meanwhile, oh, by the way, in the last 30 days, there were 125 Islamic attacks in 24 countries in which 1,910 people were killed and 1,000 were injured. You don't hear about that because it doesn't fit their narrative. And by the way, more Americans died due to the VID-19 jabs, you know what I'm talking about, than World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined. The simple fact is astounding. There are approximately 38,000 deaths from the VID-19 jab in the adverse event report system, keeping in mind that they didn't keep up with that very well, and there was a whole bunch that they didn't even report. This could put the numbers of Americans murdered via the VID-19 GAB at 3.8 million. Okay. In World War I, there were approximately 116,000 American military deaths. World War II, approximately 405,000, and Vietnam, approximately 58,000. In total, the combined American military deaths from wars is 580,000. So even on the low-end death projection of the VID-19 jab exceeded the total American military deaths of all three wars. The high-end death projections exceed the numbers of Americans who died in all the wars. It should be pointed out that the death toll from the VID-19 jab may be much higher because those reports weren't accurate and were kind of manipulated for the first couple of years. Crazy stuff. 1,236% increase in cardiac arrest deaths, 112,000% increase in brain clots. Will there be monuments in the future to the fallen in the campaign of global extermination? Will these victims of biowarfare campaign be recognized as casualties of war? I doubt it. Who knows? On another note, no more Dan Bonjoni. That's terrible. His podcasts are gone. He's so sad he had to retire from his political outspokenness and now is working with MAGA team to provide his expertise and dedication to the country. He was quite sad. See you on the other side was his quote. So I'm going to hit him up, tell him I'll take over his podcast. What do you think? This session has been a little bit weird, a wee bit different, because I really think it's necessary for people to wake up to the full realization that Canada is teetering on the precipice of destruction from this agenda, which perpetuates the undeniable fact that it's headed into complete demise. Wake up, people. This shit's real. So now let's stop looking at all the depressing and infuriating news and start our week with something positive. Reframe our thoughts to something more positive from the agenda of madness. Let me show you this one. This is pretty cool. These guys interrupted a rainbow parade. Oops, I got to add that back on. Wait for it now. Don't you find it interesting that the law enforcement is facing them because they pose a potential threat? Concepts and perceptions. A little bit different than what I see it as, but whatever. On a completely positive and different note, I had a very interesting conversation with a member of the Disciples Christian Motorcycle Club the other day, which I would like to share with you in the near future. I really have some incredible people that I know that are willing to come onto my new podcast and kind of give their information and have a little story to tell. And I hope that those stories can bring some positiveness to all of us in our lives. I'm setting up some really interesting guests, and that's in the next few weeks, so please stay tuned. Then I copied this one, and I'm going to put on another clip. I copied this one from a recent Sean Ryan podcast. Sean Ryan always asks that we tag him in it, or, if you're going to take stuff from his videos or his podcast, to make sure that you give credit where credit is due. And I'm pretty new at this stuff, so all I can really say is credit where credit is due. Sean Ryan's interview with this gentleman is really quite informative and really has a lot to say. And it's, like I said, again, on that positive note. So I'm just going to play this little reel for you. Have a look at this, and then I'll make some more comments.
I think my self-worth and how I was defining that. That Friday morning, I get an email from our admiral who would say, hey, I've reviewed all the evidence. I've still decided that you meet the criteria to proceed with this board of inquiry. I still find reason to believe you were negligent and derelict in your duties. And that one crushed my soul more than anything else, because back to my self-worth, I had let this become defined by what man thinks of me, what the teams think of me. And here we have an admiral who speaks on behalf of our community. Like it or not, he represents us all. And he's telling me I'm not worthy. And so when you've built 25 years of self-worth around that, and that's
kind of crazy, right? I mean, developing self-worth around the things you do, not who you be. Tough place, tough deal. This is a really neat podcast interview, and you should check it out. I'm going to add one more piece to it because I think it's very important.
It took me to some really, really dark places. And I was driving by myself actually up to one of the foundations, the C4 Foundation up in the mountains near Julian. So I was on the road by myself, just spiraling into some darkness. It's a hard thing as a man when your self-worth is taken from you. And I reached out to a few friends. You were one of them. You answered, pulled me back out a little bit. They say that in those darkest moments, you need about 8 minutes of someone's time, and it helps you get out of it. And so I've encouraged people, hey, just in a text to somebody, say, I need 8 minutes of your time, and they'll know, okay, this is serious. We need to talk. So you called me, and another friend called me and helped pull me out, and it was like, okay. I don't know. I can't explain that. I don't think it came from within me. I think it was something external. And, but it came in my most vulnerable place. And I worked through that with God over the weekend. And I was so ashamed of the dark places I had gone that it was hard for me to even tell Amy. I was so ashamed. And when I finally mustered the courage to, I'm crying. And she said, I know. She said, I felt it. And I was worried. And I was praying. She said, I'm glad you got through that moment. I said, yeah, me too. Me too. And when I heard God say in that moment, he's like, why did you give man this authority over you? It's yours to give and take. You don't have to care what this person thinks about you. You don't have to care what this community thinks about you.
Profound statement.
You gave that to them. You can take that right back. And what I heard him say in my mind was, give it to me. I define your worth. I value you. You are worthy because I made you worthy. I love you. I have chosen you. I have claimed you. I bought you with a price. See yourself through my eyes. And I realized, oh man, I had to get to that dark moment to even see the chains that I had forged around me to define my self-worth by what man thinks of me.
Remarkable statement. 8 minutes. Apparently, all it takes is 8 minutes of your time to help somebody who might be in a bad headspace, to help them get out of that and get clear of that. Wow, pretty important stuff. The mass madness of the elite parasites of this world is becoming increasingly visible. Their actions and behaviors are illuminating us to their motives, and most importantly, the truth. They are in their crescendo. They are all scrambling because they fear losing the power that has become the God that they worship and serve. The facade of their own distorted identity is crashing down around them, and even though they continue to enforce their agenda and perceive powers on others, they truly do despise what they have become. It's obvious by their behavior and hatred towards others. As we rise up and see the corruption, manipulation, and distortion of reality, they become weaker and weaker and more fearful every day. They're back alley bullies, only with more money. And the only way to deal with a back alley bully is to rise together and assist them, in discovering they are not in alignment with their divine identity. They're living a lie, and this is particularly why they are so corrupt and narcissistic. If we can't help them here by explaining this to them, then perhaps we may have to enlighten them by other means. As a brother said once, sometimes we are the anvil, sometimes we're the chisel, and sometimes we are the hammer. We let our Father decide, as he knows every aspect of who we are and will use us and our skills for his glory. We live above this illusion. The evil has no power or authority over us because we no longer acknowledge their fake authority. There's so much more in the world of light and truth to see and to find peace in. I'm going to quote you something that I found the other day that I really like too. And it just kind of talks a little bit about the spiritual component of religion, kind of in comparison. Many people wrongly believe that their value to God depends on their religious activity. Biblical principles are often taught in such a way as to suggest that the aim of life is to do what's right. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's just dead religious works. You have not been called to live by biblical truths. You've been called to live by the truth, who is the Christ, who lives inside of you. Your life isn't to be driven by religious determination, springing from information you might have learned. It's about a relationship with our Father, our Dad. All the doing flows from the relationship. Well, that's podcast number 8. I hope you liked it. There's a little ticker tape floating down there that says, check out my YouTube channel. Check me out on Rumble. Send me an email. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of the podcast. Tell me who you think I should put on the podcast. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for listening to my crazy words on my rants. I hope you have an incredible week. Stay salty. Stay lit. Remain vigilant at all times.
Well, that wraps up another session of Only the Bare Facts, your destination for unfiltered stories, real-life lessons, and an unwavering commitment to the word of truth. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, and send me an email with your comments. You can find me on X, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, and Truth Social. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast or can suggest someone that would bring truth to this world, contact me with more information. I hope this podcast helps all those truth warriors who are on a journey to find their true identity and divinity. Remember, the most celebrated artist in the world calls you his masterpiece. He sees you flawless in his grace. Live your life fully knowing that you are his righteous sons and daughters. Thank you for being a part of this journey.